The silver ring in Ren Vale's pocket could have sent him to the gallows, but the message carved inside it was far more dangerous than the theft itself. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell me in the comments what you would do if no one believed your innocence. Part 1. Ren had learned long ago that silence made people invent their own answers. At 23, he had spent nearly half his life unable to speak. A childhood fever had left him with breath, but no sound. He could hear perfectly, read lips and write quickly, though few people had the patience to wait for his slate. That morning, Ren entered the archive before sunrise. He had been ordered to clean the reading chamber for the prince's return from the northern border. Rain tapped against the tall windows while he dusted shelves and arranged 3 untouched cups beside the hearth. The triplet princes of Vale Dorn had been absent for 6 months. Every servant knew their names. Prince Leoric was the calm and severe heir. Prince Marius commanded the guard. His kindness disappeared when someone threatened his family. Prince Dain was a scholar, who found lies inside the most careful sentence. They were 27, powerful alphas, and famous for rejecting every noble omega presented to them. He was wiping rainwater from the window ledge when he noticed the cabinet behind the archivist's desk was open. Inside rested the Star of Vale Dorn, a pale blue jewel fixed into a ceremonial silver ring. It was used to seal secret orders from the crown. Footsteps sounded in the corridor. Ren hurried toward the door to call for help, though calling was impossible for him. Before he reached it, Lord Steward Halric entered with 2 guards. Halric looked at the open cabinet, then at Ren. His surprise lasted less than a second. "There he is," Halric said. "Search him." Ren stepped back and raised both hands. One guard caught his shoulder while the other searched his coat. Ren struggled only when the guard reached into his right pocket. The silver ring appeared in the man's palm. Ren stared at it in absolute horror. He had never touched the jewel. His pocket had been empty when he dressed. Halric's expression became cold with satisfaction. "An Omega servant stealing the royal seal," he said. "I wonder who paid you." Ren shook his head and reached for the slate hanging at his waist. Halric tore it away and dropped it beneath his boot. "No tricks. Take him to the judgment hall." The guards dragged Ren through corridors crowded with staring servants. He struggled to remember who had come close enough to plant the ring. Then one memory cut through his panic. The night before, Ren had seen Halric speaking to a cloaked stranger outside the archive. The stranger mentioned the prince's return. Halric answered too softly to hear, then drew one finger across his throat. The judgment hall was prepared for the prince's welcome. Courtiers filled the galleries. At the far end stood 3 men in dark traveling coats. All 3 were tall and dark-haired, with sharp jaws and storm-gray eyes. Leoric watched the room without moving. Marius rested one hand near the sword at his hip. Dain studied Ren as if he had opened a book no one else could read. Halric bowed and presented the ring. "Your Highnesses, this servant was found alone in the archive with the Star of Vale Dorn hidden on him. We must assume he intended to deliver it to an enemy." Ren pulled against the guards and pointed toward his missing slate. Halric sighed. "He cannot speak." "Convenient, is it not?" Marius's gaze sharpened. "Convenient for whom?" The hall fell silent. Halric blinked. "For the thief, Your Highness." Marius descended the steps. His scent of rain and cedar should have frightened Ren. Instead, warmth moved through Ren's chest. Marius seemed to feel it too. "How old are you?" he asked. Ren held up 2 fingers, then 3. 23, Dain said from the dais. Ren nodded. Leoric came down next. The same strange warmth pulled at Ren. He glanced at Marius, and something unspoken passed between them. Dain joined them last. The moment all 3 stood around Ren, his pulse stumbled. Beneath their distinct sense was one shared note that his Omega instincts recognized. Bonded alphas. Not bonded to him. That was impossible. Dain's eyes widened as if he had reached the same conclusion. Leoric turned to the guards. "Release his arms." Halric stepped forward. "Your Highness, he may be dangerous." "Then you should have brought evidence beyond an object found in his pocket," Leoric said. The guards obeyed. Ren rubbed his wrists. Dain held out a small notebook and a charcoal pencil. Write what happened. Ren hesitated. No one had ever let him answer before deciding he was guilty. He wrote quickly. The cabinet was open when I entered. I saw the ring but did not touch it. Someone placed it in my pocket. Last night I saw Lord Leoric with a cloaked man outside the archive. They spoke about your return. Dain read the page, then passed it to his brothers. Leoric laughed. A desperate invention. Ren seized the pencil again. The stranger wore a black glove with a red thread around the wrist. He smelled of clove oil. His left boot made no sound. This time Marius looked toward Leoric. One of the border assassins wore boots with felt beneath the left heel, he said. We found the right boot after the ambush. Unease moved through the court. Leoric's face lost its color, but only for a moment. The mute could have heard soldiers gossiping. Ren wrote again. The stranger said the river gate would open when the third bell rang tonight. Marius drew his sword. Lock the river gate. Double the watch. No one leaves the palace. Guards rushed from the hall. Leoric pointed at Ren. He is part of the plot. Why else would he know? Because he pays attention while men like you assume silence means stupidity, Dain replied. Leoric examined the ring. His thumb moved across the inner band, then stopped. This is not the Star of Valedorn. Leoric stared at him. Leoric twisted the jewel. The blue stone came loose, revealing dull glass beneath a thin layer of crystal. A copy, Leoric said. The true seal is still missing. The accusation changed. Someone had selected Ren to carry false evidence. Dain looked at the broken slate still lodged beneath Leoric's boot. Why did you destroy his only means of answering? Leoric stepped away from it. I feared he might use secret marks to contact an accomplice. With charcoal in a room full of guards? Marius asked. Leoric opened his mouth, but Leoric raised one hand. Take Lord Leoric to his chambers. He will remain there until we finish questioning every person who entered the eastern wing. 2 royal guards approached. Leoric's confidence finally cracked. You cannot value the word of a nameless Omega above mine. Leoric looked at Ren, not Leoric. He has a name. Ren wrote it in Dain's notebook. Ren Vale. Leoric read the words aloud. Then Ren Vale will remain under royal protection. Marius sheathed his sword and faced the gathering. Anyone who approaches him without our permission will answer to all 3 of us. Ren's breath caught. Protection from the triplets sounded almost like a claim. Dain returned the notebook to him. You are still in danger. The person who planted that ring expected you to be executed, before you could explain what you saw. Ren looked at the doors through which Leoric had been taken. Then he noticed a thin line engraved inside the false ring. He lifted it toward the light. The mark was not part of the royal crest. It was a tiny hawk pierced by 3 arrows. Ren knew that symbol. His mother had drawn it on the final note she wrote before disappearing 12 years ago. His hand began to shake. Dain steadied his wrist. What is it? Ren turned to a clean page, but before he could write, a sharp crack sounded above them. The chain holding the great iron chandelier snapped. It fell directly toward Ren. Marius lunged first. Leoric caught Ren around the waist while Dain pulled Marius clear. The chandelier smashed against the marble where Ren had been standing, scattering glass across the hall. Ren was held against Leoric's chest with Marius shielding his back and Dain gripping his hand. 3 alpha scents surrounded him. The warmth inside him became a fierce ache. Across the hall, behind the panicked courtiers, a cloaked figure slipped through a side door. Ren saw the black glove. He also saw the red thread around its wrist. The stranger had entered the locked palace, and this time he had not come for the royal seal. He had come to silence Ren forever. End of Part 1. Part 2. Leoric did not release Ren until the last piece of glass stopped sliding across the marble floor. Marius was already running toward the side door. 2 guards followed him while Dain knelt beside the fallen chandelier and studied the broken chain. No one leaves this hall, Leoric ordered. The courtiers protested at once. Leoric silenced them with one look, then guided Ren away from the wreckage. His hand remained firm around Ren's arm, but his touch was careful. Are you hurt? Ren shook his head. He pointed toward the side door, and drew a red line around his wrist with one finger. I saw him, Ren wrote in Dain's notebook. The man from last night. Black glove. Red thread. Leoric read the words and looked toward the guards. Search every passage between this hall and the river gate. Bring the stranger alive if possible. Dain called them to the chandelier. The final link of the chain was black around the edges. This did not break from age, he said. Someone weakened it with acid and waited for Ren to stand beneath it. Ren stared upward. He had been placed in that exact position by the guards. The accusation had been designed to bring him into the hall, and the falling chandelier had been prepared in advance. The thief had expected every step. Except the prince's believing him. Lord Halric must be questioned now, Leoric said. A guard hurried forward. Your Highness, Lord Halric never reached his chambers. Leoric's expression became dangerously still. Explain. The guard swallowed. The men escorting him were found unconscious near the west stair. Their uniforms are missing. Dain rose and placed himself beside Ren. They plan to kill him before the third bell. That means he knows something they cannot risk us learning. Ren touched the mark inside the false ring. My mother used this symbol, he wrote. She disappeared 12 years ago. Her name was Vale. Dain lost his controlled expression. Vale? Ren nodded. Dain looked at Leoric. We need to speak privately. Leoric ordered the hall sealed, and took Ren through a guarded corridor to the prince's private solar. Dain carried the false ring. The room overlooked the rain-darkened gardens, and contained 3 desks arranged around one large map table. Ren remained near the door. No servant was permitted inside this room, and he still wore a servant's plain gray coat. Leoric noticed his hesitation. You are here as our protected witness, not a servant. Sit wherever you wish. Ren chose a chair near the fire. Dain opened a locked drawer, and removed a thin book bound in faded blue leather. The pierced hawk belonged to the Silent Wing, he explained. It was a group of royal messengers who carried secrets without written orders. They answered only to our mother, Queen Alara. Ren wrote slowly. My mother was a laundress. That may have been her disguise, Dain replied. He opened the book to a page filled with names. Several had been covered with black ink. Near the bottom, Ren saw one entry that remained clear. Vale. Keeper of the Eastern Path. Ren traced the letters with a trembling finger. His mother had left for work one winter morning, and never returned. The palace had told him she had abandoned her position. Other servants whispered that she had abandoned her mute Omega son as well. Ren had spent 12 years believing them. Leoric crouched beside his chair, so Ren would not have to look up at him. Your mother served the crown with honor. Whatever happened to her, she did not simply leave you. Ren pressed his lips together. He wanted to believe those words, but hope could hurt more deeply than grief. The door opened. Marius entered with rain on his coat, and blood across one knuckle. Did you find him? Leoric asked. No. He reached the old chapel passage before us. We found this caught on a stone. Marius placed a strip of black cloth on the table. A red thread had been sewn around its edge. Dain examined it. This is not from a glove. It is part of a royal mourning band. Only the king's family wore those bands after Queen Alara died. Marius noticed the fear in Ren's face and knelt in front of him. You will not return to the servants' wing. You will stay in the rooms between hours. Ren immediately shook his head. Why not? Ren wrote his answer. Because people already think I trapped you. If I sleep beside your chambers, they will say I used Omega Scent to control you. Marius read it twice. Anger tightened his jaw, though Ren understood it was not directed at him. Let them speak, Marius said. Words can still wound someone who cannot answer them, Dain said quietly. Leoric reached for the notebook. No one will be allowed to define what exists between us. Not the court and not instinct. You will choose what you want. Ren's pulse quickened. He wrote one question. What does exist between us? Silence filled the room. Marius looked toward his brothers. Dain removed his glasses and folded them. Leoric answered with the same directness he had used in the judgment hall. All three of us felt the bond awaken when we approached you. We have shared one bond since birth, but we have never been drawn to an Omega. Until now. Ren stared at the page beneath his hand. He had heard stories about matched bonds. They were rare even between two people. A bond connecting one Omega to three Alphas was almost unheard of. He wrote carefully. Does that mean you will claim me? Only if you ask us to, Leoric said. The answer eased something inside Ren. They could have used rank or instinct to demand obedience. Instead, they had given him a choice when almost no one else had given him a voice. Marius held out his hand. Ren studied it, then placed his fingers in Marius's palm. Warmth traveled up his arm. Marius inhaled sharply. Dain moved closer but stopped before touching Ren. When Ren offered his other hand, Dain accepted it with gentle care. Leoric remained beside him, close enough to protect and far enough not to crowd him. For the first time since the accusation, Ren felt safe. Then the third bell rang. The sound rolled across the palace. An explosion shook the windows. Marius pulled Ren behind him, while Leoric went to the balcony. Orange light rose beyond the gardens. The river gate, Leoric said. They rushed into the corridor. Ren ran between Dain and Marius while guards gathered behind them. Smoke poured through the lower passage leading to the river. At the gate, one watchtower burned. Soldiers fought the flames while others lifted two wounded guards from the ground. The iron gate remained closed, but the wall beside it had cracked. Captain Oren, commander of the river watch, approached with soot on his face. Oil barrels exploded beneath the tower, he reported. We found a dead servant beside them. The true royal seal was in his coat. Dead men do not steal seals, Dain said. He was another person chosen to carry evidence. Ren saw something behind the captain. Mud covered the stones, marked by dozens of boot prints. One print ended differently from the others. The left heel was smooth. Ren pulled Marius's sleeve and pointed. Marius followed the trail with his eyes. It led away from the damaged wall and into the palace, not toward the river. The explosion was a distraction, he said. Ren looked at the tower. 3 arrows had been carved into the burned door. Beneath them was a fresh line shaped like a hawk's wing. He touched the false ring in Dain's hand, then pointed toward the fire. Dain understood. The same person left both marks. A young guard ran toward them. Your Highnesses, someone entered the Queen's sealed apartments during the explosion. The guards outside were attacked. Leoric ordered Captain Oren to hold the gate, and led the others back through the palace. Queen Alara's apartments had been closed since her death 9 years ago. Dust covered the furniture, but fresh footprints crossed the floor. A portrait had been torn from the wall, revealing a narrow compartment. It was empty. Dain searched the frame and found a folded paper trapped beneath one corner. The writing was faded, but Ren recognized it instantly. It belonged to his mother. Dain handed him the note. Ren unfolded it with shaking hands. 3 lines remained visible. The princes must never learn why the queen died. The truth is hidden with my son. If they find Ren, the crown will kill him. Ren slowly raised his eyes. Leoric, Marius and Dain stood around him. The men who had saved his life and awakened a bond inside his heart. According to his mother's final warning, they were also the men he should fear most. End of Part 2. Part 3. Ren read his mother's warning again until the faded words blurred. If they find Ren, the crown will kill him. Leoric, Marius and Dain remained silent. None tried to take the letter from him. None demanded that he explain why Mira Vale had written it. Ren stepped away from them. Marius looked wounded by the movement, but he did not follow. You have every reason to question us, Leoric said. We will not punish you for it. Ren wrote with an unsteady hand. Your mother trusted mine. My mother feared the crown. Why? Dain studied the note. The crown may mean our father, the council, or the institution itself. It does not necessarily mean us. It does not clear us either, Marius said. Ren looked at him in surprise. Marius met his eyes. Trust earned without truth is only obedience. We do not want that from you. The words loosened the fear around Ren's heart, but they did not erase it. His mother had risked her life to leave this warning. Ignoring it because the princes made him feel safe would be foolish. He turned the paper over. A faint brown stain crossed one corner, shaped like half a circle. Ren had seen the same mark somewhere before. He closed his eyes and remembered his childhood room. His mother had owned a small wooden music box carved with birds. On the night before she vanished, she had pressed Ren's thumb against a circular hollow beneath its lid. Ren wrote again. My mother left me something. I need to get it.
Where?
Leoric asked. The Eastern Servants' Wing. Marius shook his head. Leoric knows you live there. Then come with me, Ren wrote. But do not lock me away for my safety. A hint of pride appeared in Leoric's eyes. Agreed. Before they left, Leoric noticed the narrow iron band around Ren's wrist. Every palace servant wore one engraved with the wing where he worked. Leoric turned the band and saw fresh bruises beneath it. Who tightened this? Ren pointed toward Leoric's name in the notebook. Leoric's calm finally broke. He took a small key from the desk and opened the band. You entered this palace as a servant because no one offered you another path, he said. From this moment, you are a guest of the royal house. No one owns your labor or your silence. Ren rubbed the pale skin beneath it. Leoric did not touch the bruises. He only waited until Ren lifted his hand, then pressed his fingers gently against Ren's palm. Ren signed one word. Thank you. I intend to learn every word you wish to say, he answered. Dain stayed behind to examine the note, while Leoric organized guards around the queen's apartments. Marius accompanied Ren through the palace. News of the prince's protection had already spread. Servants bowed as Marius passed, then stared at Ren. A noble near the gallery whispered that the mute thief had bewitched all three royal heirs. Ren kept walking, but Marius stopped. Say it again, he told the noble. The man lowered his head and fled. Ren touched Marius's sleeve and shook his head. You want me to ignore them? Ren nodded, then signed two simple words. Not important. Marius watched his hands closely. Teach me. Ren repeated the signs. Marius copied them with surprising care, though his first attempt was clumsy. Ren smiled before he could stop himself. Marius stared at him, as if the corridor had filled with sunlight. There it is, he said softly. Ren raised an eyebrow. Your smile. I was beginning to think the palace had stolen it. Heat touched Ren's cheeks. He turned away and continued walking, but Marius stayed close enough that their shoulders brushed. The servants' wing was nearly empty. Ren's door stood open. Inside, his mattress had been cut apart. Clothes covered the floor. The small collection of books he had saved for years lay ripped beside the wall. Marius's expression hardened. Who knew about the box? Ren wrote on the notebook Dain had given him. No one. I never opened it after my mother disappeared. They searched the room. The wooden box was not beneath the bed where Ren had left it. He checked the wardrobe, the washstand, and a loose stone near the window. Nothing. Despair rose inside him. Marius crouched near the ruined mattress and lifted a handful of straw. A soft musical note sounded beneath his boot. He cleared the straw away. The music box had been forced beneath a broken floorboard. Ren dropped to his knees. One carved bird was damaged, but the lid remained closed. He pressed his thumb into the hollow underneath. A hidden panel opened. Inside lay a narrow crystal vial and a piece of folded cloth. The vial contained 1 drop of dark liquid. The cloth had been cut from a royal mourning band and edged with red thread. It matched the strip Marius had found in the chapel passage. Ren remembered his mother repairing that band beside their small fireplace. She had told him it belonged to someone who died protecting 3 precious lives. When Ren asked who they were, she had touched his forehead and promised he would understand when the 3 stood around him. At the time, he imagined 3 guardian spirits from her bedtime stories. Now the memory carried a different meaning. Ren's stomach tightened. Marius reached toward the vial but stopped. May I? Ren nodded. Marius held it near the window. This looks like dried blood. Footsteps sounded outside. Marius drew his sword and moved in front of Ren. A palace guard appeared at the door. Prince Leoric requests your return, the man said. Dain discovered another message. Marius did not lower his weapon. Leoric would send 2 guards, not 1. The man's hand moved toward his belt. Marius struck first. Their blades collided. The false guard fought with brutal speed, forcing Marius away from the doorway, while another figure climbed through the open window behind Ren. A black glove covered the figure's right hand. Red thread circled the wrist. Ren grabbed the music box and backed away. The intruder did not draw a weapon. Instead, the figure signed to him. "Come with me if you want to live." Ren froze. Only one person had used that exact sign with him before. His mother had created it when he was a child because he often hid during thunderstorms. Ren shook his head and pointed toward the mask. "Who are you?" The stranger signed again. "No time. The princes will use your blood to save their father. You will not survive." Marius knocked the false guard's sword away, but the man pulled a hidden knife. Ren saw it rise behind Marius. He threw the music box. It struck the attacker's wrist. The knife missed Marius and cut his shoulder instead of his back. Marius roared and drove the man into the wall. The black-gloved figure seized Ren around the waist and pulled him toward the window. Ren fought, striking the intruder's arm. The bond inside him flared with fear and pain. Somewhere in the palace, Leoric and Dain felt it. The door burst open moments later. Leoric entered with 4 guards. Dain followed, holding Ren's mother's letter. The masked figure released Ren and leaped toward the window, but Dain caught the long cloak. The fabric tore. Leoric blocked the escape while Marius pinned the false guard to the floor. Trapped, the intruder drew a thin blade. Ren stepped between the stranger and Leoric. Leoric caught his arm. "Move back." Ren refused. He had seen the stranger's hand shaking. The blade was pointed outward, but the figure had not once tried to hurt him. Ren signed slowly. "Remove the mask." The stranger stared at him. Dain spoke from behind them. Mira taught her son a private language. "If you truly know it, answer him." The stranger lowered the blade and signed. "I promised I would return when the 3 were strong enough to break the crown." Ren's breath stopped. It was the final promise his mother had signed before leaving him 12 years ago. The stranger reached for the mask. Marius rose despite the blood spreading across his shoulder. He stood beside Ren while Leoric guarded his other side. Dain moved close behind him. The mask fell to the floor. A woman with silver threaded through her dark hair looked back at Ren. A scar crossed her left cheek, but he knew her eyes. He knew the small mark above her brow. He knew the face that had appeared in every dream of his childhood. Ren's knees weakened. The woman reached for him with her bare hand. "My son," she signed. Ren could not move. Ren Vale was alive. She looked at the 3 princes surrounding him, and her expression filled with terror. Then she signed one final warning. "If the bond completes, Ren will die exactly as your mother did." End of Part 3. Part 4. Ren stared at Mira while her warning echoed through the ruined room. "If the bond completes, Ren will die exactly as your mother did." Marius moved closer despite his bleeding shoulder. Leoric remained between Mira and the door. Dain watched her hands, ready to translate if Ren missed a sign. Ren did not need help understanding his mother. He signed one question. "Why did you leave me?" Pain crossed Mira's face. She lowered her blade. "Because King Orden discovered who you were. I made him believe you had died, then placed you among the palace servants under another family name. I stayed away so no one would connect us." Ren's hands shook. "I waited every day." Mira stepped toward him, but Ren stepped back. 12 years of grief could not disappear because she had returned. Mira stopped and bowed her head. "I know. There is no forgiveness large enough for what that waiting cost you. Did you ever try to contact me?" Mira reached beneath her coat and removed a bundle of narrow paper strips. Each carried a message in the private signs they once used together. Every strip had been returned unopened and stamped with Leoric's office mark. "I sent one on your birthday every year," she signed. Leoric found the first messenger. "After that, he watched everyone who approached you. Staying invisible was the only protection I had left." Leoric glanced at Marius's wound. "We need a secure room and answers. Both can happen together." The captured attacker laughed from the floor. Blood stained his teeth. You are already too late. His body suddenly convulsed. Dain knelt beside him and smelled the man's breath. Bitter almond, he said. Poison hidden in a false tooth. The attacker went still before they could question him. Mira pulled back his sleeve. A pierced hawk had been burned into his wrist, but the mark was crude. Leoric copied the silent wing symbol, she signed. He wants every crime to point toward me. Were you in the judgment hall? Marius asked. I followed Leoric there. I saw the chandelier falling, but I could not reach Ren in time. The man who cut the chain escaped through the servants' passage. I chased him to the chapel, and lost part of my mourning band. Dain held up the matching strip from the music box. Then the red thread identifies the silent wing, not the assassin. Mira nodded. Leoric ordered the guards to carry the dead attacker away. They moved to an old council chamber with one entrance and no windows. Marius refused a physician, so Mira cleaned his wound while Ren held a lamp. The cut was shallow, but Ren's fingers tightened whenever Marius flinched. Marius noticed. I have survived worse. Ren signed sharply. That does not mean this does not hurt. Marius smiled despite the pain. You are worried about me. Ren looked away. Marius touched 2 fingers to Ren's wrist, waiting until Ren met his eyes. I am worried about you too. Whatever your mother tells us, nothing will happen without your choice. Mira tied the bandage and faced the princes. Your mother was born with an echo bond, she signed. It allowed her to share strength with all 3 of you. When you were infants, it kept you alive through a winter sickness. Years later, King Orden forced her to open the bond completely, because he wanted heirs who could never be defeated separately. Leoric's face hardened. Our father told us she died from a weak heart. Her heart failed because the completed bond drained her life into yours, Mira answered. She knew the ritual would kill her, but Orden threatened to execute everyone in the Silent Wing if she refused. Dain looked at Ren. Why would the same thing happen to him? Mira's hand slowed. The Echo Bond passes through certain Omega bloodlines. Queen Alara had it. Ren has it too. That is why all 3 of you reacted to him. Ren remembered the warmth that had awakened when the princes surrounded him. Something that had felt like hope now seemed like a blade hanging over his heart. Leoric moved away from his brothers. Then we will suppress the bond. You cannot suppress it forever, Mira signed. If the 4 of you remain close, it will continue growing. We will leave him, Marius said. The words struck Ren harder than he expected. Ren gently caught Marius's hand and shook his head. Then he pointed to Leoric, Dain, and Marius before placing his palm over his own heart. Marius understood. You do not want us to leave. Ren nodded. Leoric came closer, but kept enough distance for Ren to step away. Wanting us now does not bind you to what you may want tomorrow. You can change your answer at any time. Dain signed the words as Leoric spoke. His movements were imperfect, yet clear. Choice. Always yours. Ren stared at him. I studied the signs while you were gone, Dain explained. Written words are useful, but you should not always be forced to reach for a pencil before others listen. Mira watched all 3 princes respond to her son, without command or impatience. Some of the fear left her expression. Dain saw his expression. Distance may not be the only answer. Mira said the queen was forced. A willing bond may behave differently. Mira looked toward him. I searched 12 years for proof of that. Every record was destroyed. Dain placed the faded letter and crystal vial on the table. Perhaps not every record. He explained that the brown half-circle on Mira's note was a blood seal used by Queen Alara. The message could only be revealed with blood carrying her echo trait. Mira looked at the dark drop inside the vial. The queen gave me that on the night she died. Why hide it with Ren? Leoric asked. Because Orden searched every Silent Wing safe house. A forgotten Omega child was the only hiding place he never considered important. Ren absorbed the words. His mother had hidden him to protect him, but she had also hidden the crown's most dangerous evidence beside him. He took the vial from Dain and held it over the stained corner. Mira caught his wrist. Once opened, the message may reveal where you are to anyone carrying the royal seal. Ren looked around the table. Leoric stood controlled but pale. Marius held one hand over his bandaged shoulder. Dain waited without trying to influence him. They were willing to walk away from him to save his life. Ren was not willing to let fear choose for all of them. He removed Myra's hand and tipped the vial. The drop touched the paper. Brown lines spread across the page. Words appeared beneath Myra's warning. Written in Queen Alera's hand. The echo does not kill through love. It kills through command. 4 willing hearts will balance what one ruler tried to steal. Marius read the sentence aloud. Hope returned so suddenly that Ren almost laughed. Dain continued reading. The bond must be chosen equally. If even one voice is denied, the Omega will carry the full burden. Leoric looked at Ren. Then your silence is exactly why our father chose you. He believed no one would ask for your answer. Ren understood. Halric had accused him of theft to place him before the princes. If the bond awakened, King Orden could later force its completion, and turn his sons into weapons. But the chandelier had nearly killed Ren before that could happen. 2 plans were colliding inside the palace. Dain reached the final hidden line. Do not trust the king's sleeping face. The illness is a mask. Marius rose. Our father has been unconscious for 6 months. We saw him before leaving for the border. Mira signed quickly. Did you touch him? No, Leoric said. Halric claimed the fever was contagious. The 3 brothers exchanged a stunned look. Ren wrote on Dain's notebook. The explosion at the river gate brought Halric back inside. What if he went to the king? Leoric headed for the door, but the lock turned before he reached it. Every torch in the council chamber went out. Marius drew his sword. Dain pulled Ren behind the table, while Mira reached for her blade. A hidden panel opened in the stone wall. King Orden stepped into the room. He did not look ill. His silver hair was neatly tied, and the true star of Veildorn shone on his finger. Halric entered behind him. The king looked at Mira with calm satisfaction. 12 years of hiding, and you still brought the Omega exactly where I needed him. Leoric stood in front of Ren. Father, what have you done? King Orden smiled. What every great king must do. I prepared my heirs to become immortal. Then he lifted the royal seal. Pain exploded through the bond. Ren fell to his knees as 3 burning marks appeared over his heart. End of Part 4. Part 5. The 3 marks over Ren's heart burned like heated iron. Leoric dropped to one knee. Marius gripped the table while Dain pressed both hands against his chest. The royal seal was forcing pain through the bond they shared. King Orden watched without emotion. Complete the bond, he commanded. Give your strength to my sons. Ren could not breathe. A crushing pressure wrapped around his mind, trying to turn the king's command into his own desire. Mira struck Halric with the hilt of her blade and rushed toward Ren, but Orden twisted the seal. An invisible force threw her against the wall. The seal carries Queen Alera's blood, Dain gasped. He is using her echo to control ours. Orden approached Ren. You were born for this. Obey, and your name will be remembered beside my heirs. Ren looked at the princes. Their faces were strained with pain, yet none reached for him. Leoric forced himself upright. Do not listen to him. You owe us nothing. Marius extended one shaking hand but kept it open. Only if you choose. Dain raised his fingers and signed through the pain. Your voice. Your choice. The king's power demanded surrender. The princes offered freedom. Ren understood the hidden message Queen Alera had left. 4 willing hearts will balance what one ruler tried to steal. He crawled toward Leoric and placed one hand over the prince's heart. With his other hand, he caught Marius's fingers. Dain moved close enough for Ren to rest his forehead against his. Ren did not submit to them. He chose them. Warmth moved through the 4 of them in equal waves. The burning marks over Ren's heart cooled. Leoric's strength flowed toward Ren, but Ren's pain returned to Leoric without destroying either of them. Marius's courage joined them. Dain's calm steadied the bond. No one carried the full burden. For one breath, Ren saw fragments of the brothers as if they were memories inside his own heart. Leoric stood awake beside his mother's empty bed, promising his younger brothers he would never abandon them. Marius trained until his hands bled, because strength was the only protection he understood. Dain searched forbidden books for proof that their mother's death was not natural. They felt every cruel laugh he endured because he could not answer aloud. They felt the small stubborn hope he had protected through all those years. "We hear you," Leoric said. Orden's smile vanished. "Impossible." Ren faced him and signed one word. "No." The royal seal cracked. Marius surged to his feet and knocked Orden's arm aside. Leoric drew his sword while Dain pulled Ren behind the stone table. Leoric recovered and attacked Mira. Their blades struck in the darkness. Mira cut his sleeve, revealing the false silent wing mark on his wrist. Orden pressed the broken seal against his palm. Blood filled the crack and restored its blue light. "Kneel," he ordered his sons. Leoric remained standing. "You are no longer my king." The declaration shook Orden more than the broken seal. Marius drove him toward the hidden passage, but Leoric threw a glass sphere onto the floor. Thick gray smoke filled the chamber. Ren lost sight of everyone. A hand seized his coat. He struck it away until Dain signed against his palm. "It is me." Dain guided him beneath the table. Leoric found them moments later, followed by Marius. His wound had opened again. "Where is Mira?" Ren signed. Before Dain could answer, her blade slid across the floor and stopped beside them. Ren started toward it. Leoric caught him around the waist. "We cannot see who is waiting in that smoke. She is my mother. And you are her son. She would not want you to die blindly." The smoke thinned near the hidden passage. King Orden and Leoric were gone. Mira had vanished with them. Ren picked up her blade. A strip of cloth was tied around the handle. 4 words had been written across it. "Do not follow yet." Marius struck the wall in fury. They took her. Dain examined the hidden passage. "There are 3 routes behind this wall. If we choose the wrong one, Orden will have time to gather the palace guard." Leoric listened at the locked door. Boots approached from the corridor. "He already has." A voice called from outside. "By order of King Orden, the 3 princes are accused of treason. Surrender the Omega, and your lives will be spared." Marius gave a humorless laugh. He always was a poor liar. Ren looked at the cracked royal seal lying near the hidden panel. A small piece of blue crystal had fallen free during the fight. He picked it up and saw a thin silver line inside. It pointed toward one of the 3 tunnels. Dain studied it. The seal was designed to guide its bearer through the palace passages. Orden went east. Leoric looked from the approaching door to the tunnel. "We cannot rescue Mira if we are captured here." They entered the eastern passage just before the guards broke down the door. Marius sealed the panel behind them, leaving the 4 in complete darkness. Dain held the crystal shard. Its weak glow revealed narrow stairs descending beneath the palace. The stairway was so narrow that they had to move in a single line. Marius went first despite his wounded shoulder. Ren followed him, Dain stayed behind Ren, and Leoric guarded the rear. Halfway down, Marius stumbled. Ren caught the back of his coat and forced him to stop. He retied the bandage with a strip torn from his own sleeve. "You keep saving me," Marius whispered. Ren signed against his uninjured shoulder. "We save each other." Marius covered Ren's hand with his own before continuing. Ren remained between the brothers. The bond was quieter now, but he could feel each of them. Leoric's controlled anger. Marius's fear for Mira. Dain's determination to understand what Orden had done. They could feel him as well. Ren touched the place over his heart. The 3 marks had changed from red to silver. "Are you in pain?" Leoric asked. Ren shook his head. Dain examined the marks without touching them. The forced bond failed, but our willing connection remained. Marius looked at Ren. "Do you regret choosing us?" Ren answered immediately. "No." Marius understood the sign now. His expression softened. Leoric reached for Ren's hand but waited. Ren closed the distance and linked their fingers. Then he took Dain's hand and offered his other hand to Marius. They continued down the stairs connected by choice rather than command. The passage ended beneath the old throne hall. Through a metal grate, they saw hundreds of guards gathering above. King Orden stood on the dais, dressed in ceremonial armor. Leoric waited beside him. Mira was not there. Orden addressed the soldiers. My sons have fallen under the control of an enemy Omega. They attacked their king and stole the royal seal. At sunrise, they will be removed from succession. A guard asked who would inherit the throne. Orden placed one hand on Leoric's shoulder. The Lord Steward has proven more loyal than my own blood. Until order is restored, he will command Vale Dorn in my name. Leoric bowed, but Ren saw the satisfaction in his eyes. The chandelier attack made sense now. Leoric had wanted Ren dead before the bond could strengthen the princes. He was serving Orden while secretly destroying the king's plan. Ren pointed this out to Dain. Leoric is planning to betray him, Dain whispered. We may be able to use that division. Leoric watched the soldiers. Most of these men served under Marius. They will not all believe our father. Not without proof, Marius said. We need the queen's message and Myra's testimony. Dain looked at the blood seal note inside his coat. We have one. We must recover the other. A bell rang above them. The throne hall doors opened, and 2 guards dragged Mira inside. Her hands were bound. Blood marked her temple, but she stood straight. Ren moved toward the grate. Marius held him back before the soldiers could see him. Orden forced Mira to her knees. Bring the Omega to me before midnight, he announced. If Ren Vale does not surrender willingly, Mira Vale will be executed at dawn. Ren's blood turned cold. Mira looked directly toward the hidden grate as if she knew he was there. Then she raised her bound hands and signed one secret message. Do not save me. Find the queen's grave. Dain went pale. Queen Alara had not been buried in the royal crypt. Orden claimed her body was burned to prevent the winter sickness from spreading, and only an empty stone rested in the garden cemetery. If Mira believed something remained inside that grave, then Orden had lied about more than the queen's death. Leoric saw the movement. His gaze shifted toward the grate. He smiled. Then he pointed directly at Ren's hiding place. End of Part 5. Part 6. Leoric's finger remained aimed at the grate. Soldiers turned toward the hidden opening. Marius pushed Ren behind him while Leoric searched the stone wall for another exit. Dain held the crystal shard near the floor. Its silver line shifted toward a narrow crack beside the tunnel. There, he whispered. Marius kicked the grate outward before the soldiers could open it. The metal frame struck 2 guards and filled the throne hall with confusion. Go, he ordered. Leoric pulled a concealed lever. A section of wall opened, revealing a passage leading away from the hall. The 4 slipped through as arrows struck the stone behind them. Leoric shouted for the guards to follow. The passage climbed beneath the royal gardens. Dain followed the silver line while Marius covered their retreat. Ren felt his injured shoulder weakening through the bond, but Marius refused to slow down. They emerged behind Queen Alara's memorial stone. The cemetery was empty beneath the midnight rain. Ren found the half-circle symbol from Myra's letter carved under the queen's name. He pressed the crystal shard into its center. The memorial stone moved aside. A narrow chamber waited below. There was no coffin inside. A wooden chest rested on a pedestal surrounded by 3 bronze lamps. Leoric opened it. Inside were 3 letters, a sealed record book, and Queen Alara's silver crown. Each letter carried the name of one prince. Leoric read his first. My brave firstborn, leadership is not obedience to a throne. It is the courage to stand between cruelty and those it would consume. Marius opened his letter. My fierce heart, strength is not measured by how much pain you can endure. Let others protect you too. Dain unfolded the final page. My seeker of truth, knowledge without love becomes another weapon. Trust the hearts that search beside you. The brothers stood silently around the words their mother had hidden for 18 years. Ren moved to Leoric first. He covered the heir's shaking hands until they became still. Then he touched Marius's wounded shoulder, and reminded him with a look that he did not need to endure everything alone. Finally, he stood before Dain and signed the word Dain had practiced for him. Together. Dain repeated it. Marius joined him. Leoric completed the sign last. Their grief remained, but it no longer separated them. Ren realized the bond was not only pulling him toward 3 powerful alphas. It was allowing 4 lonely men to build a place where none of them needed to hide. Ren touched each of their hands. The bond carried their grief without swallowing it. For the first time, they mourned as sons rather than princes expected to remain strong. Leoric opened the record book. It contained Queen Alara's account of the forced echo ritual. Her signature appeared beside those of 6 council witnesses. Hauric's name was among them. The final page declared King Orden unfit to rule if he ever used the royal seal to command another bond. This can remove him from the throne, Dain said. If we reach the council alive, Marius answered. Ren pointed toward a map drawn inside the chest. A red line connected the memorial chamber to the palace dungeons. Mira had not sent them away from her. She had shown them how to reach her unseen. They entered the passage beneath the pedestal. At the final door, Marius heard 2 guards speaking. One complained that Hauric had ordered Mira moved before dawn. Leoric opened the door while Marius disarmed the first guard. Dain struck the second with the heavy record book. Ren caught the keys before they hit the floor. Mira was chained inside the last cell. Relief broke across her face when Ren appeared. He unlocked the door and embraced her before anger could stop him. Mira held him tightly. "I am sorry," she signed against his back. Ren pulled away and answered. "Do not disappear again. Never by choice." Mira saw the silver marks over his heart and looked at the princes. "You balanced the bond." Ren nodded. "Then there is something else you deserve to know." Mira touched his throat. "The fever did not take your voice. I gave you an echo suppressant when Orden's men found us. It was meant to hide your scent and voice for a few days. Your body reacted badly, and the silence remained." Ren stepped away from her. "You did this to me?" Mira's hands trembled. "I chose your life over your voice. I had seconds to decide, and I have hated myself for it every day." Ren wanted to shout, but only air escaped. The loss felt new again. Memories returned with painful clarity. He remembered waking after the fever and trying to call for Mira. He remembered people assuming that because he could not speak, he could not understand. Most of all, he remembered how often his silence had been used as permission to decide his life without him. Mira did not ask him to forgive her. She placed the strips of birthday messages in his hand and waited. Ren closed his fingers around them. He could not forgive 12 years in a moment, but he could choose not to lose another 12. Dain moved beside him without touching him. "Can it be reversed?" "The balanced bond may already be healing what the suppressant damaged," Mira signed. His voice might return slowly. It might not return at all. Leoric looked at Ren. "Nothing about your worth changes either way." Marius signed the words Ren had taught him. "We hear you." Ren's anger remained, but it no longer left him alone. Footsteps approached the dungeon. Hauric entered with 6 armed men. He stopped when he saw the record book in Dain's hands. So the queen kept her insurance after all. Leoric raised his sword. "Your signature proves you witnessed her coercion. It proves nothing if no judge lives long enough to read it." Hauric ordered the soldiers forward. Marius met them first. Leoric guarded Ren and Mira, while Dain protected the book beneath his coat. Ren noticed Hauric circling behind Marius with a knife. He seized a fallen chain and threw it around Hauric's wrist. Hauric turned on him. The useless Omega again. Ren pulled the chain, dragging Hauric off balance. Marius struck the knife away and forced him against the cell bars. The remaining soldiers lowered their weapons when Leoric showed them the queen's crown. Hauric laughed even with Marius's blade at his throat. "You think Orden needs me now?" "At midnight, he will bind every guard in the palace to his seal. Then he will force the Omega to complete your bond before the entire court." Dain looked toward the dungeon clock. Midnight was minutes away. Leoric ordered the soldiers to hold Hauric and open the route toward the throne hall. They climbed through the memorial passage with Mira beside them. When they reached the garden, the palace bells began ringing. Hundreds of servants had been forced into the courtyard. King Orden stood above them on the balcony, with the restored seal raised in his hand. The guards surrounding the crowd had empty expressions. Blue marks glowed at their throats. Orden had already bound them. He saw Ren beneath the memorial arch. "Come forward willingly," he called, "or every bound soldier will turn his sword on the nearest servant." Mira caught Ren's arm. "The record can defeat him. Do not surrender." Ren looked at the terrified servants. Many had mocked him, but others had shared bread with him or waited patiently while he wrote. None deserved to die for the king's ambition. Ren showed them the crystal shard hidden in his sleeve. Queen Alara's blood remained inside it. If he could bring it close enough to the restored seal, Dain believed the two echoes would oppose each other and break Orden's control. It was dangerous, but surrendering without a plan was worse. He signed to the princes. "Trust me." Leoric understood his plan through the bond. "We go together." Orden demanded Ren alone. The three princes stepped from the shadows anyway. Leoric carried the queen's crown. Marius held Myra's blade. Dain raised the record book for the gathered court to see. Ren walked between them. Whispers spread across the courtyard. The accused Omega no longer wore an iron servant band. 3 silver marks shone above his heart, and the royal heirs stood beside him by choice. Orden's face twisted with rage. "Seize them." The bound guards moved. Ren felt the king's command enter the bond. This time, he did not resist it alone. Leoric, Marius, and Dain shared the pressure equally. They reached the steps beneath the balcony. Orden aimed the seal at Ren. "Kneel and give them everything." Pain closed around Ren's throat. The silver marks flared. A sound rose inside him, rough and unfamiliar after 14 silent years. He opened his mouth. "No." The single word rang across the courtyard. Every bound guard stopped moving. End of Part 6. Part 7. Ren's single word broke the king's command. The blue marks vanished from the guards' throats. Swords lowered across the courtyard as men and women woke from Orden's control. Ren swayed. Leoric caught him before he fell. "Do not force your voice," he said. Ren touched his throat. Speaking had felt like dragging sound across broken stone, but hearing his own voice after 14 years filled him with disbelief. King Orden raised the seal again. "Kneel." The command struck the crowd, yet Queen Alara's crystal shard glowed inside Ren's sleeve. The guards remained standing. Dain climbed the balcony steps and opened the record book. By the last decree of Queen Alara, Orden surrendered his right to rule the moment he used the royal seal to command another bond. Orden laughed. "Words written by a dead Omega do not remove a king. They do when witnessed by the council," Leoric said. He lifted the silver crown. Several elderly council members in the crowd recognized it and bowed their heads. Dain read the names of the 6 witnesses. Hauric's name came last. Marius ordered the guards to bring him forward. Hauric entered the courtyard in chains. His confident expression disappeared when he saw that Orden's control had failed. Orden pointed the seal at him. "Silence him." A bound guard raised his sword. Ren stepped forward. "Stop." His voice cracked, but the guard froze. The courtyard stared at the Omega they had believed could never speak. Dain signed. "Can you breathe?" Ren nodded. Mira pressed one hand over her mouth. She had protected his life by taking his voice, and now she was hearing it return in defiance of the man she feared most. Ren tried another word. "Leoric." The air turned. Hearing his name in Ren's unsteady voice broke through his controlled expression. "Marius," Ren whispered. Marius smiled even as tears brightened his eyes. "Dain." Dain answered with the sign for here. Mira moved beside her son and signed for him to rest. Ren shook his head. His silence had protected Orden for long enough. Leoric faced Hauric. "Tell the council what happened to our mother." Hauric looked toward Orden, then at the guards surrounding him. "The king forced Queen Alara to complete the echo bond. I prepared the chamber and recorded the ritual. When her heart began failing, Orden ordered everyone to leave her there." Marius's hand tightened around his sword. "And Ren?" "Orden wanted him brought before you so the matching bond would awaken. I placed the false seal in his pocket and arranged the accusation." Ren stared at Hauric. "The chandelier?" The question emerged as a whisper. Hauric understood. "That was my decision. Once the bond awakened, Orden would have heirs no army could defeat. I intended to stop him by killing you first. Dain turned a page in the record. You were not protecting Valedorn. The Queen recorded that you demanded control of the army in exchange for your silence. Halric's face hardened. Orden would have destroyed this kingdom. I was preparing to replace him. With yourself, Leoric said. Mira faced the crowd and signed while Dain translated. My son was condemned because powerful men believed his silence made him easy to erase. Remember who spoke the truth when your king ordered you to forget it. Marius crossed the distance and struck Halric hard enough to send him to his knees. Ren caught Marius's arm before he could strike again. Not revenge, Ren whispered. Marius looked at him, breathing hard, then stepped back. The council members began calling for Orden's arrest. The king did not appear frightened. He pressed the seal against a blue stone set into the balcony rail. A deep bell sounded beneath the palace. Dain's face changed. The river gate. Orden smiled. Valedorn was built beside a controlled river. If the lower gates opened together, water would tear through the eastern district and drown thousands before sunrise. Return my sons and the Omega to me, Orden announced, or the capital dies with my reign. The stone beneath them trembled. Beyond the palace walls, people screamed as warning bells began to ring. Marius called to the guards. Close the lower gates manually. They cannot, Halric said from the ground. The royal seal locked the mechanisms. Only a stronger echo can break its command. Orden retreated through the balcony doors while loyal soldiers blocked the entrance. Leoric wanted to follow, but Dain stopped him. Even if we capture him, the gate command will remain. He opened Queen Alara's record and searched the margins. A line of silver ink had appeared when Ren spoke. The balance bond can silence the seal, Dain read. 3 alphas must offer their strength without command. The Omega must accept each vow aloud. Mira looked at Ren. Your voice has only begun healing. The final acceptance could damage it again. Then I will speak while I can. There is no time, Ren whispered. The princes felt his resolve through their unfinished bond. They also felt the affection he had been afraid to name. It had grown in small moments. Leoric removing the servant band. Marius learning his signs. Dain placing a notebook in his hands before judging him. Marius lowered his voice. If you are doing this because the city leaves you no choice, then the vow is not willing. I am doing it now because the city cannot wait, Ren said slowly. But I am choosing you because you became the first people who saw me before I could prove my worth. Dain watched his lips, ready to stop him if speaking became painful. You can answer in signs, he said. We will not value a spoken vow above the voice you already have. Ren touched Dain's hand. Tonight Orden used my silence as a weapon. I want him to hear my answer. Leoric's resistance finally softened. He took Leoric's hand and placed it over the silver marks on his chest. Choose, Ren said. Leoric understood that Ren was not surrendering. He was demanding an equal answer. The heir lowered himself to one knee. I offer you my loyalty, not my authority. I will stand beside you when you want me and step back when you ask. I choose the man who found courage inside a life designed to silence. Him. Ren's eyes burned. I accept Leoric. One silver mark brightened. Marius knelt next. His injured shoulder trembled, but his gaze remained steady. I offer you my strength, but I will never use it to cage you. I choose the man who protected me, even while everyone called him powerless. I choose your stubborn heart and the smile you thought this palace had stolen. Ren managed that smile now. I accept Marius. The second mark shone. Dain stepped forward. Instead of kneeling, he raised his hands and signed every word while speaking. I offer you every truth I find, including the ones that frighten me. I choose the man whose silence taught me what listening truly means. Whether you speak, write, or sign, I will never mistake your quiet for absence. Tears slipped down Ren's face. I accept Dain. The third mark filled the courtyard with silver light. The brothers stood around Ren, but no power moved yet. Dain checked the hidden instructions. There is one final vow. Ren must choose what the bond will become. The ground shook again. A distant wall collapsed beneath the river's force. Ren looked at Leoric, Marius and Dain. What had begun with a false accusation had become the first place where his choice mattered more than his designation. He placed his hands over theirs. "I choose you," he said, his voice rough but clear. "Not as masters. Not as saviors. I choose you as my equals, and I ask you to choose me again every day." "We choose you," the brothers answered. Their answer entered Ren without pressure. He felt Leoric's devotion as steady as stone, Marius's love as fierce as fire, and Dain's tenderness as a quiet light. In return, they felt every part of Ren that refused to vanish even after years of being overlooked. There was no ruler at the center of them. Strength moved in a circle and returned to the person who offered it. Mira watched the bond her friend had died trying to protect become what Queen Alara had hoped it could be. The balanced bond opened. Silver light traveled from Ren's heart into the palace stones. The blue light inside Orden's seal weakened. For a moment, the river gates began to close. Then Leoric tore free from the guard holding his chain. He seized a fallen crossbow. Mira saw him aim at Ren. She shouted a warning, but the bolt was already flying. Marius stepped in front of Ren. The bolt struck his chest. Marius collapsed into Ren's arms. The second silver mark went dark. Without all three alphas, the balanced bond shattered. Across the city, the river gates opened wider than before. End of Part 7. Part 8. Marius lay motionless in Ren's arms while water thundered toward the city. The crossbow bolt had entered beneath his collarbone. Blood spread across his coat, and the silver mark connecting him to Ren had almost disappeared. Ren pressed both hands around the wound. "Marius," he whispered. There was no answer. Leoric tried to run, but Mira swept his legs from beneath him. Leoric seized the fallen chain and bound Leoric's wrists to the courtyard rail. "If he dies," Leoric said, "your precious bond dies with him." Leoric struck him once, then turned away before rage became murder. Dain knelt beside Ren and examined the bolt. "It missed his heart, but we cannot remove it here." "We cannot wait," Ren said. The river gates were opening wider. Screams rose beyond the palace walls. Mira placed her fingers against Marius's throat. His pulses weak. Ren closed his eyes and searched the broken bond. He found Leoric and Dain immediately. Marius was only a distant spark surrounded by darkness. Ren reached for it. Leoric caught his shoulder. "Do not carry this alone." Dain placed one hand over Ren's. Leoric covered the other. Together, they sent warmth through the fading connection. Ren remembered Marius kneeling in the judgment hall. He remembered the Alpha learning his signs and smiling when Ren smiled. He remembered the vow Marius had spoken only moments earlier. "Let others protect you too." The words from Queen Alara's letter returned to them through the bond. Ren bent close to Marius. "Come back," he said. "We save each other." The second silver mark flickered. Marius inhaled sharply. His eyes opened. "You keep ordering me around," he murmured. Ren laughed through his tears. Mira broke the wooden shaft and secured the remaining bolt against Marius's chest. "He will live if we stop the bleeding. The bond is holding him for now." Marius tried to stand. Leoric pushed him down. "For once in your life, let someone else protect you." Marius looked at Ren and stayed where he was. "I meant every word of my vow," Marius said. "But stepping in front of that bolt was instinct, not a command placed on you. Do not mistake my choice for a debt." Ren signed with one hand, while keeping the other over Marius's heart. "I know. I am staying because it is my choice to." Dain reopened the Queen's record. "The bond does not require us to stand. It requires all four choices to remain unbroken." Ren offered his hand to Marius. "Do you still choose us?" Marius squeezed his fingers. "Every day." The second mark returned. Leoric and Dain joined their hands with Ren's. Marius rested his palm over them from the ground. Ren spoke the final vow again. "I choose you as my equals." The balanced bond opened with greater force than before. Silver light crossed the courtyard and entered the palace foundation. It traveled beneath the streets toward the river. The lower gates resisted. King Orden's command pressed against them from the seal tower. Ren felt the weight of it, but this time no one carried more than the others. Leoric gave strength. Marius gave courage. Dain gave clarity. Ren gave the answer Orden had never allowed anyone to give. No. The command broke. Across Vale Dorn, the river gates slammed shut. The water stopped at the edge of the eastern district. Cheers rose from the city, but a violent crack split the air above the palace. The true royal seal shattered in King Orden's hand. The blue marks disappeared from every bound guard. Marius was carried to the palace infirmary under Myra's protection. He refused to release Ren's fingers until Leoric promised they would bring Ren back safely. Leoric, Dain, and Ren climbed toward the seal tower with loyal guards behind them. They found Orden beside the broken mechanism. Pieces of the Star of Vale Dorn covered the floor. His power was gone. Orden looked at Ren with hatred. "I offered you a place beside legends. You offered me a grave," Ren answered. His voice was still rough, but it no longer trembled. Orden drew a hidden knife and rushed toward him. Leoric blocked the blade. Dain struck Orden's wrist with the Queen's record, and the knife fell. The guards surrounded the king. Orden faced Leoric. "If you arrest me, every kingdom will call you a weak son." Leoric removed the royal signet from his father's hand. "Then they will learn that mercy and weakness are not the same thing." He ordered Orden imprisoned until a public trial could be held. Before the guards took him away, Orden looked toward the portrait of Queen Alara, hanging above the tower stairs. "She made you weak," he told Leoric. "No," Leoric answered. "She taught us how to survive you." For the first time, Orden had no command left to give. The guards removed him, while the rising sun touched the queen's painted face. In the courtyard, Leoric tried to trade information for freedom. Mira answered by placing the false seal, the mourning band, and his signed testimony before the council. Leoric was stripped of his title, and taken to the same prison, where he had sent innocent servants for years. Marius was awake while a physician finished bandaging his chest. The moment Ren entered, he opened his arms. Ren went to him without hesitation. Marius held him carefully. "I heard you call me back." Ren rested his forehead against Marius's. "You listened." Leoric sat beside them and kissed Ren's knuckles. Dain touched Ren's cheek, then signed the words he had practiced in secret. "I love you." Ren signed the answer before speaking it. "I love you too. All three of you." Marius smiled. "Even when one of us gets shot. Especially when that one finally stays in bed afterward." At sunrise, the royal council gathered in the judgment hall, where Ren had first stood accused. This time, he entered beside the princes rather than between guards. Dain presented Queen Alara's record. Mira testified about the Silent Wing. The guards described Orden's attempt to bind them, and Leoric's confession was read aloud. The council removed Orden from the throne. Then Leoric addressed Ren before the entire court. "Ren Vale, you were falsely accused, imprisoned, and denied the right to answer. On behalf of the crown, I ask your forgiveness." Ren looked around the hall. He could have demanded vengeance. Instead, he raised his hands so every servant watching could understand. "Do not ask only me. Change the laws that made this possible." Leoric agreed. The iron servant bans were abolished that morning. Every accused person gained the right to write, sign, or choose someone to speak for them. No Omega could be bound by royal command again. Weeks later, Leoric accepted the crown. Marius remained commander of the royal guard, though Ren made him rest until his wound healed. Dain opened the sealed archives and published the truth about Queen Alara. Ren refused every decorative title the council offered him. Instead, he became Keeper of Voices, leading a new office that protected servants, Omegas, and anyone denied a place in court. His first act was to transform the room where Leoric had destroyed his slate into a public writing chamber. Paper, charcoal, and sign interpreters were available to anyone who entered. Above the door, Ren placed the broken iron band Leoric had removed from his wrist. Silence is not permission. The princes visited whenever their duties allowed. Leoric brought difficult petitions and listened to Ren challenge his decisions. Marius taught self-defense to palace servants, and pretended not to notice when Ren corrected his stance. Dain built a library of signed histories so stories would never again belong only to those who could speak aloud. Mira joined him after renewing her oath to serve people rather than kings. Their relationship healed slowly, through honest anger, shared meals and birthday messages delivered in person. The bond between Ren and the princes strengthened, without taking anything from them. They kept separate rooms and open doors. They asked before touching. They learned every sign Ren knew, even after his voice returned enough for conversation. One evening, the four stood beside the repaired river gate. Leoric held out a simple silver ring without a jewel. "The court expects us to claim you," he said. "We told them the question belongs to you." Ren examined the ring. "I will never belong to the crown." Marius smiled. "Good. Neither will we." Dain signed his answer. "We belong beside one another." Ren placed the ring on his finger. "Then I claim all three of you as my equals." Leoric kissed his forehead. Marius kissed his smiling lips. Dain took his hand and signed one final promise against his palm. Every day, Ren looked toward the city that had once known him only as a mute thief. Now it knew his name. More importantly, the men he loved had heard his heart long before his voice returned. End of Part 8. And that is the end of Ren's journey from a forgotten Omega, accused of theft, to the man whose courage changed an entire kingdom. His voice may have been stolen, but his heart was never silent. Leoric, Marius and Dain did not save him by claiming his life. They earned his love by respecting his choices. If Ren's story touched your heart, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional BL stories. And tell me in the comments, which prince captured your heart the most? Leoric, Marius, or Dain? Or would you choose all three just like Ren? Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means more than you know, and I cannot wait to share another unforgettable love story with you.